Hey team, welcome back to another great episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell. And today I am super excited. We've got Cam Camfield. He's the CEO at Stratovation Group. Cam, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you so much, Mark. Grateful to have. Excuse me. Wow, that's terrible.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you for having me.
No problem. It's I've been looking forward to this one, right? Because we've gotten to know each other a little bit virtually here, run into each other at a couple of shows the last year or so. Stratovation Group seems to be hitting the stratosphere in the marketing world in ag, and you guys are crushing it. So I was grateful we could finally get the time to do it.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. All right, opening question. What does it mean for you, Cam, to be intentional?
Yeah, I think it took me a little bit and some continued life exploration to find what intentionality really meant for me. But
Mhm.
uh, for me, it's to wake up every day and leave a lasting and positive impact on all that we're doing. And right now, a heavy focus on that is on the agri-food value chain. So that's intentionality for me and largely
Mhm.
for our team.
Yeah, man. Beautiful. Really beautiful. I love it when people like actually take a step back and think about it before we get into it, because intention takes intention. You can't get there without it.
Absolutely, and
So,
I think, sometimes it feels like it's gonna come to you, and then other times you kinda have to reassess things and take a step back and do it for yourself, so,
yeah.
no, I think intentionality is really everything and an area of focus that's of great importance.
Mhm. Yeah, it's it. I think it's really, really important. What I'm hearing from a lot of the folks that we work with right now. There's a lot of frustration, a lot of rethinking, particularly like how do we keep young people around. I've had a lot of my ag retail folks have really struggled to keep the 28 and unders around. That's been a lot of, and that it takes intentional thought to sit around and to sit down and actually put pencil to paper and come up with a plan for that. That's just one example. Also, this year in particular seems to be more challenging than some years in the ag market. So, again, it requires another level of intentionality. And I'll also just posit this as a concept. Maybe it can come up after we do your introduction. But it's like now what you're gonna find out who really was not intentional coming into this market,
Mhm.
right? Because when winter hits, things get exposed.
No, that's incredibly well said, and who's intentional yesterday, and then who's intentional moving forward as
Mm-hmm.
the things change, and are we staying ahead of things as they're adapting, or are we kind of sitting in old information, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about Stratovation Group. Give us a little back history on Cam Camfield.
Yeah, so a bit about Stratovation Group. Put simply, we like to help solve agriculture's toughest problems through research, consulting, and advertising services. Um, I'll give you a bit of my background and how we got here because I think it all ties together. So I was born in kind of rural Indiana on the Indiana-Illinois border, but most of my life was spent in pretty suburban Hilliard, Ohio, here just west of Columbus. Grew up, first love was soccer, and I found I wanted to be in marketing my senior year, but my first love was soccer, and that was kind of my
Mhm.
focus. I was fortunate enough to go to a small D3 school here in town and get to realize that my first goal of going pro in soccer was not going to happen. And so at 18 and 19, I had this blessing to play at D3, but also realized, getting to play Ohio State's B team and all these other that we were pretty far from home. And to kind of that lost intentionality, I didn't know really what to do at that point in my life, kind of a bit of a lost soul at that point. And thank God I
Mhm.
had some great mentors who introduced me to entrepreneurship. And that kind of changed my focus. So coming out
Wow.
of school, focused on entrepreneurship for a couple of years and really enjoyed that. But still kind of bounced around. Some of that was in music, some of that was insurance, banking, tech, and couldn't really find anything to like hold on to or that I loved. And then through a misfortune of a different company burning down, I fell into an agricultural market research role
Hmm.
and just instantly fell in love. I found it was like talking to all my grandpa's friends that I had grown up around, and then just got to talk to him, got to listen and learn for a couple of years. And so I would say, while I didn't unfortunately get to grow up on a farm or directly in agriculture,
Mhm.
it was really a blessing to kind of find it. And now that I've been here about 12 years, I'm not going anywhere. So
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. It's so good, man. Like it's a great story for finding your way into this place. And it can be very addicting once you find that network and find your purpose in ag. It becomes it's very, very sticky. We're just now getting requests to pull our business outside of ag, right? We've got a banking client and all related stuff, really, technically related to the industry, but not directly in it, and it just, it doesn't always feel the same when you're starting to work with another entity like that. There's just something special about it. So it's super interesting. I mean, you've built a pretty strong network for yourself. If you don't mind me asking, I'm just interested, like, what has been your intentionality, if you will, around, I mean, getting connected, building. I mean, you guys have seemed to kind of come out of nowhere in the last, seems like 24 months, from a business growth perspective. And I'm sure there's more before that. So I don't want to take away from when you're looking
oh,
at it from the outside. It's so ridiculous. Like, oh man, like you really figured it out. I'm like, yeah, I've been figuring it out for 15 years. Right? Seems like he came out of nowhere. Like, yep, came out of nowhere 15 years ago. No, just nobody knew about it yet. But I'm sure you guys have. I'm sure you guys have had your ups and downs. But I mean, just how did you establish your network? How did you get going in this space? Because you didn't have that natively coming in.
yeah. So, admittedly, a lot of everything has been through being intentional about finding mentors and bringing
Mm-hmm.
folks in, admitting that we don't know enough and need a lot of help and as much help in coaching and education as possible. But then
Mm-hmm.
doing that in a way that also adds value for other people. So, for I was the third person hired at Aimpoint Research. Jumping in there with Brett and team in the early days was awesome, getting to go out there and listen and learn from other folks. But then, their biggest partner at the time was FLM Plus, Q getting to work with Rob,
Mm-hmm.
another great mentor, great person to listen and learn from, and help. Fast forward a couple of years, Russ Green on our board of advisors. He's got this huge collection of awesome agricultural, next gen leaders in his next gen Ag 10. Didn't have a website for it. I said, "Hey Russ, I'll build you that for free. Can we get to know each other?" Right. And so, I always tried to just provide value before ever asking for it, and
Mm.
then just live authentically and show up and try to do good work. And so I think, people are willing, as Russ, especially folks like that, are willing to give back and coach and mentor
Yeah.
and offer a hand up or build a seat at the table for you. But you have to meet them halfway. You got to treat them with tremendous respect. You have to be humble enough to shut up and listen,
Yeah.
and then take and live that advice, which isn't always easy either. So no, I think having great mentors around us has really been, just a linchpin of my whole career, and we've had a lot of
Mm.
great advisors and board members, who have just really helped shepherd the company along.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. It's really good. It's a great lesson. It's similar to how I got started early on in this business when I needed those connections. The connections were everything. That was oxygen to me at that point, and I would, Glenn Stith, who was a former VP of Monsanto, very involved with FFA and Alpha Gamma Rho and all these organizations. And so I got connected to him through the fraternity, and, would buy him lunches and dinner whenever I was coming through, and even got to go stay with him and Maggie. And, at one point, like they made, just helped me financially along, and I repaid that, and we maintained a good friendship, through it all. And it's like the connections that came out of just that one relationship, and that's one of many. Those were the thing that really helped get it going, you know, and that I would advise that to any, especially young people, but really anybody who wants to grow their business. I think sometimes when we get into our 40s and 50s, it's like, oh, too far along. I shouldn't be asking for help anymore. That's a young man's game. But I think we always need mentors. We always need coaches, regardless of how old we are, So, well, talk to us a little bit as you're building up this business. You've got, you guys have had a lot of growth. You've hired a lot of people in the last year or two. How are you establishing culture early on? How are you building that? What's the culture of Stratovation Group, to whatever extent you can share?
Yeah, no, it's something that's really important to us and something that's really close to our hearts. We were born out of the pandemic. So what's interesting, you know, we never really had a full-time office to report to before. We were born remote. Then we were kind of hybrid. And so we've had to
Hmm.
be intentional about building that culture because we don't have the benefit of all living in the same exact city and getting to see each other
Yeah,
in person every single day. So um, the biggest piece, I would say, the word that you hear around our people most is empathy.
hmm,
At the end of the day, an advertising agency, a research business, these are all the creative and wonderful outputs of very talented individuals, right?
sure.
Um,
Yep.
it's a service business, and so it's not widgets, it's not insurance, it's not risk, it's their creative outputs, and so in an industry like ours where there are opportunities to do similar or like work, what it comes down to is who you're doing it with, and do
Hmm.
you enjoy doing that work? And so our team really look, we're passionate agriculturalists and we love winning. We're pretty competitive. And so we like to play hard, but it's never without that empathy lens that at the end of the day, we're all going home to family members that we care about a whole bunch more than, you know, likely the work and all these other things. And so it's just keeping those broader things in mind and then living that. So when something goes wrong, okay, am I upset? Sure. But do we need to react emotionally or can we take a second and say, hey, what really happened here? And is everybody okay? And, you know, as long
Yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
it's a rounding error and not a life or death situation, then the answer is okay. And we can move forward. So I think that's our biggest piece. You know, we are passionate. We want to win. We affectionately say, get stuff done. But it's
Hmm.
got to be done the right way. And we want to have some fun while we're doing it.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Really good, man. What would you advise people who are maybe wanting to improve upon that virtual business culture? I feel like in ag, I mean, we were doing this before it was cool. You always had remote sales reps and so forth working with a lot of these companies, but in those that maybe just trying to enhance that culture where we don't see each other face to face often, if almost ever, maybe a couple times a year we're getting together. Any tactics that you guys are using to stay in good communication?
Yep. So I'd say we do twice a year in person ALCOs, and those are great
Hmm.
opportunities. Have some camaraderie, bring in friends and family, advisors, you know, break bread, that type of stuff. But really, I'd say that it's the week in, week out kind of maintenance of check ins and the
Hmm.
depth of those check ins. Now, don't get me wrong, not everybody wants to get super deep with you out the gate, and certain people are introverted and some people are happy to go
Hmm.
deeper. But we do try to check. It's not just how's the work, is, you know, are you billing, is the work done, is this project on time, it's how's your family, how's your personal life, how's your health doing, everything going, because what I've found historically
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the work being behind or some other business issue is usually likely a symptom of something else going on. Now, don't
Hmm.
get me wrong, as your employer, I'm not so arrogant to think that I can fix all your life's problems or I'm going to solve all your family issues. But if I know there's something going on, even if I don't need to know every gory detail, I'm
Hmm.
happy to help. I'm happy to give grace. I'm happy to manage expectations. So that's kind of our game. Trying to play a little bit more holistic and transparent game around how things are going for the individual and the business, and not just one of those things.
Good. Yeah, yeah, that's cool. We used to in the pre 2020 version of our business, we were very like we had a very heavy cadence of quarterly in person. And I remember back in the beginning it was just a couple three of us. It was like every day at 8:15 Central. Every day at 8:15 Central. It was we were on a Zoom. I don't even think it was Zoom. I think we were pre-Zoom at
Sure.
that point, right? It was whatever the
Skype.
web, yeah, the web software. But we would, it just was a time for us because we were so virtual. Everybody had been more accustomed to working in an in-person environment, and I had one in Michigan at the time, one in Nebraska, in a different part of Nebraska. I was in Omaha at that point in time, and so none of us lived in the same area. And certainly we would go do events and be in the same place when those things would happen. But it was just that cadence. We had daily daily meetings Monday through Friday, right? Just connecting on what's going on, what's happening throughout the course of the day. And that may have been a bit much, but it was what we needed. And eventually we scaled those back. We went to once a week, right? But
Mhm.
we, in the beginning, we just infused connection into the culture. right? Just connect. And one of Tony Robbins' 6 basic human needs, connection is one of the most basic needs that we have as humans, and it's tougher to do it when we're sitting here having these virtual conversations, and thank God for technology. We could never have been producing this kind of content if we didn't have this kind of technology, right? And we can
Amen.
sit down and create these resources that are hopefully helpful to people, right? But it doesn't really do it as quickly as like happy hour,
That's right. No, that's right. Yeah.
right?
We've
And
actually just recently started to reintroduce kind of a once a month just meet up, a couple optional days where people can come into Columbus and
mm-hmm.
do that because yeah, I'm with you, that connection. And then the speed of the learning is huge. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't need to see your face every day to trust your work and or doing anything else, but
Yep.
we've got a lot of young people too. And, helps shorten that learning curve. So.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Anything that you guys are learning in the way of helping newer career employees advance, more quickly to get up to speed?
Yeah, I think actually the intentionality is the word there. So basically, what we've figured out is that you cannot keep the world class grade A talent who wants to show up and kick butt every day if you do not have their career path in mind at a
Mm-hmm.
minimum, and if not co-mapped out. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm being incredibly thoughtful about that moving forward in terms of saying, hey, you are an awesome person here who moves the needle for us, and we're very happy with you, and we want to keep you long term. Let me work with you. So, where are you today? What do
Mm-hmm.
you want to get exposure to in the industry? We're really blessed as a business. We have a really diverse set of clients, and we have a really diverse set of offerings. I can plug and play and get you some experience in things that not everywhere else can, right? And so being intentional about that
Mm-hmm.
really in an almost every 6 month cadence. So we'll sit down with every single team member, talk about their current goals, talk about their current project workload and what do they want to experience. So if they're in row
Cool.
crop, I want to get in specialty. Okay, great. Let's do that. Or
Mm-hmm.
I'm in social media and I want to get in a long form. Great. Let's do that. So really trying to be intentional about that. But then that also means when it comes time for annual review time, you better be ready with the raises and the bonuses and all the rest of
Yeah.
it because let's be honest, none of us are running for or nonprofit businesses either. So
Right. Right. Yeah.
we've got to
100%.
respect that just the same. So
You bet. All right, one more business question. Then I want to learn more about Cam. But if I'm a mid level manufacturer or ag retailer or biological company out there today, trying to make a go of it. It's an interesting market here in 2025. We'll see what happens with the rest of the year and where things go with tariffs and all the things that are creating a lot of uncertainty, surpluses and so on and so forth. Okay. So, but what should I be thinking about in terms of marketing? I mean, and that's a very broad question, right? But as I think about positioning my company to capture those leads so that we can have the conversations that help us do business, that's how I break it down. Like it's like there's marketing that looks good, the branding side of it, and then there's like, did it put a sales appointment on my calendar? Yes or no? That's the part I care about. I could care less whether it looks good.
I think you nailed it. I mean, in a B2B environment, that, in my opinion, is the only goal of marketing is to drive sales activity and meaningful sales activity, impactful sales activity.
Mm-hmm.
So, to get to your first part, in the uncertain environment, in the new norm, as dust is shuffling around everywhere, I'd say, are you accurately viewing the playing field? And not the one of yesterday, but the one of today and the one of the future. And if the
Yep.
answer is no, or I'm not sure, I'd be leaning a lot heavier into research and learning and kind of that business intelligence function right now,
Mm-hmm.
because let's not kid ourselves, the game board's changing. Whatever was true 18 months ago is almost on its head now. And if it's not yet, it might be soon. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of it. As far as the marketing side, in a down ag economy, we can't afford to do anything but drive success. And so I would just challenge folks that now is not the time to cut marketing and get rid of
Mm-hmm.
it because your competitors aren't, and they're going to continue to stay loud in market and take everything you're leaving off the board. But I think you nailed it. If your marketing activities aren't meaningfully and measurably leading to sales funnel activity, qualified leads that then close,
Yep.
it's not doing its job. So
Yep.
yeah, that'd be my strong advice at this point.
Beautiful. I love it because I think, it's also not the time to be cutting your learning and development either.
Not at
Even
all.
though believe me, I have been on more than one situation where it was the first thing to go when things got tough because that's my paycheck, right? At the end of the day, that's what we get paid for. Also, like, I mean, when it frustrates me to see companies invest all this money in R&D and marketing to put people in a booth and then not prepare their salespeople with good training on how to manage the conversation, how to run down a lead, how to actually take it all the way. I'm sorry, Kim. It is atrocious out there. I just had a conversation with some sales guys on a coaching call the other day. And so we are just getting into it with these guys, fairly new client. They're like, talk to me about what do you do? Where do you find leads? And we're just kind of getting under the hood, trying to figure it out. I'm like, well, we drive up and down the road, see who's home. And I'm like, that's all well and good. Like, I know there's a certain aspect where you got to go drive up and down the road and see who's home. And there are about 90 other ways that we can leverage in today's with the technology of the day that are far more time efficient. And then by the way, the number one complaint that we get at our Thriving Leader program from our ag industry supporters is that we don't have enough work-life balance.
Mm.
Right. And so standing outside the fishbowl looking in, I see a very easy solution, quite frankly, easy to do and cheap. The technology is so cheap now and it's
Mm-hmm.
all deflationary. So it's all getting cheaper. And then you'll have to innovate again, which is fine because everybody will figure it out. But if you just take, the simple application of like a very simple $40 a month CRM tool applied to LinkedIn, let's take B2B as an example.
Right.
There are some technologies out there that are just like, it keeps my pipeline full.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm just a one man show from a salesperson perspective. And we if we're adding to our team, it's going to be on our training team at this point and let me go do my thing. And so I need those technologies to help make me more efficient. So I'm learning this firsthand while coaching it and training it sometimes at the same time. It's like, I don't have time to go run up and down the road in a pickup, and really neither do you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that
We got
makes
to
the
get
training that
smarter.
much more impactful because it's real life application.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So, um, yeah. Anyway, so let's get under the hood of Cam a little bit. So what would you say, Cam? What's been one of the biggest challenges that you've had to tackle building this business or others? What's been the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think in the early days, I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. I think, marketing was always interesting, but I did some time and I'm a big music guy, grew up
Mhm.
around music. So at first I thought I was going to be the music industry, got a toe in the water and ran as fast as I could the other direction. I couldn't
Uh-huh.
tell you more nightmares about a toxic, terrible industry. Then I got into banking and insurance and it was interesting and kind of cool, but like, I don't know, it didn't get me out of bed and I really struggled with that. And I felt like when I found agriculture, it kind of clicked for me because it's a noble mission. There's like, we all need it. It's
Mhm.
historic. It is of importance. So to me, that was kind of the challenge, was trying to figure out, like, I've always had a lot of energy. Where was I going to put it and what did I care about? So I think that's what I was really blessed and excited to find when I did find agriculture 12 years ago, because then I didn't have to ask that question anymore. And I just was fired up to get up every morning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fun when you find your home, find your family. So, and like I didn't come from a traditional ag background. I did grow up rural, very rural Minnesota. My dad was a wholesale fishing bait dealer, and my job was to trap leeches throughout the summer. So that's how I got my my start. But what got me into the ag industry is I walked into an ag ed classroom my ninth grade year. That was just my counselor had put it on as an elective. And so I walk in there and here's Mr. Eulenkamp and the whole ag classroom. And next thing you know, I'm going to a poultry judging contest. And the next thing you know, I'm like, man, what can we do? What else can we do? I end up in an ag sales contest and got to go to the state FFA convention where I walk onto the University of Minnesota and I saw this campus. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to school there. I'm going to go for ag ed. I knew exactly from my ninth grade year on, I was going to do it. And, and the FFA took me the rest of the way. But it was like, I didn't not no hogs, no pigs, no cattle. I wanted to have something. There was no category at the county fair for leeches. Like nobody was bringing those, so you had to go. I had to find another way in, and leadership was it. Now here we are with the really the only ag leadership podcasts out there. So
There you
it's
go.
kind of funny to
That's what it's
see.
about, finding your own niche, right?
Find your space, man. Find the niche. Find your swing. It's good. Um, so this big challenge. What's been one of your biggest wins?
um, I would say the biggest win has really just been this team. I have been
Mm,
blessed to work with a lot of really great people, and this industry is full of really, really fantastic people. Um, but this team is awesome. For the 12 folks that we've got, I would argue we have more in house than most firms, triple our size.
mhm,
And they wake up hungry, ready to run. They love the work. They do the tough thing. We run a pretty transparent game, so it's not all roses over here, but we'll
mhm.
just jump in and we'll say when it's tough and we'll realign together and we don't take each other out at the knees. We try to elevate each other. So for me, I think my biggest blessing and just the thing I'm most grateful for is waking
Mhm.
up and getting to do battle with this team every day,
Cool.
because the work, there's always a lot of work, there's always a lot to do, but they really make it awesome to do it, and I can't imagine doing it with other people. So
Nice. How do you, well, you got a team of hungry people that want to run as the CEO, and I would apply this to just any other team leader. If you got a group that wants to go, how do you keep expanding your capacity? Because you can easily become the bottleneck if you're not careful.
yeah, well, we hit that a lot too. So it's a balance. Don't get me wrong. I don't think I've got it perfect, but I'd say the
Yeah.
first thing that came to mind when you said it is high trust.
Mm,
You've got to hire them, trust them, set them up for success, and get the heck out of their way.
hmm.
But so I think it's trust, and then I'd say it's clear direction. So making sure that you're setting up whether it's the scorecards or the KPIs or the scoreboard, however you want it to be, being really clear on what success looks like, getting them what the tools and the resources they need to go do that, and then letting them run.
Yep.
Now, what I might be guilty of sometime is like, hey, I gotta rein them back in a little bit sometimes, which is great. That's
Yeah, of
a
course.
blessing to have. But no, I think that's been the biggest piece. Candidly, I've had to get better at delegating too.
Hmm.
That's been a continual growth muscle for me, because I still love the work too. That's the challenge. It's almost a little selfish sometimes. Like, oh, I wanted to do that, so I'm like, no, it's good. They're great. Let them run. So
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you and me both, man. I mean, it becomes a challenge, and we follow the what is it, the four D method, which the first one is like do it. If it's less than 2 minutes, then just do it. If it's something you don't have to do, then delegate it. And if it's something that doesn't have to be done now, then defer it, right? And then if it just doesn't need to be, then delete it.
mhm.
Like just get so just get rid of it, and there's a lot of things, a lot of pet projects we tend to hold on to a little bit, right? Maybe a little bit too long. So
No, that's never happened.
never, 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 never. I had one program last year that was in after an evaluation, we had to take a look. We just looked at everything. We doged our own business, right? And we just looked at everything and how much money is it making really, and so on. And we had one that was lost like 50 grand last year. Well, guess what? I mean, it was my favorite one. But the program didn't make money, right?
Yeah.
So we had to completely gut it, redo it, and we're relaunching it now. But so okay, let's do a little bit of a speed round here in a little bit of time that we got left. What book or books do you read, podcasts, other resources? Where would you send people?
Yeah, I'm a big book guy. I would say on the leadership side, a lot of Robert Greene stuff has been really
Hmm.
impactful for me. So, Mastery, 48 Laws of Power, and Laws of Human Nature.
Hmm.
They're really long reads, they're really thick, but they're a historical look at things that are true. I think
Hmm.
of them as modern day Machiavelli's The Prince, right? So, I think a lot of great reading and research there. And then candidly, we are really lucky. We get to do a lot of our own research. So that's anytime we get too curious about something, I'll just put the team
Sure.
on, hey, let's go talk to a bunch of farmers or anything else. So
Yep.
I'll say passion projects for us are obviously biologicals, drones, rural connectivity, and the IoT kind of sensor wave that's coming in ag tech. So
Mm-hmm.
those are some of the other topics that we try to stay really close to.
Nice. Very cool. I love it. I love it. Um, what's on your radar for I must improve on this year? And like this my personal growth includes this.
Yeah, I think my personal growth for this year is really around focus. Um, to your point, we've hit the
Mm-hmm.
scene pretty hard here the last couple of years, and there's a lot of exciting things that we've put our hands in and been a part of. And I just want to make sure as we continue to grow and continue to scale that we are not getting away from the things that got us here. We maintain an incredibly high degree of quality, and that we keep the partners and clients that got us here just as happy as they were on day one. And so I'd
Yep.
say that's my main one right now is just focus and making sure that we're doing the right stuff right.
Cool. I love it. I love it. All right. Last question as we bring it in for a landing. You mentioned empathy as a big component of your culture that's getting curated there at Stratovation Group. what Where does vulnerability play into this from an intentional leadership standpoint?
I think it's everything. I think empathy and vulnerability to me is the honest action of feeling the empathy, right? To
Mm-hmm.
empathize,
Mm-hmm.
to put yourself into someone else's shoes is a vulnerable position, but then to share and vocalize and
Mm-hmm.
reflect that in an often relatively competitive or combative environment, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's not a normal business activity, I think, historically, but I think that is going to be the new norm moving forward. I think
Mm-hmm.
people expect it. I think people expect to be treated as humans. I think, you know, COVID realigned people's priorities and,
Yep.
you know, got people focused on different things. And I think at the end of the day, for most people, family is the end all be all. And so I think vulnerability and the other piece I think that ties in with it is authenticity. So
Mm.
if you are your real self and you're honest about that and you're empathetic about what you're going through and what others are going through,
Yep.
then you can get there. And then to me, it's the culture has to be the now did we get the buy-in of everybody doing it, right?
Yep.
It can't just be one person being vulnerable or being empathetic. It's got to be everybody. But
Yep.
obviously, with all organizations, it's got to start at the top too. So
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful. Well said, man. I think a lot of people get it confused. Like vulnerability means it's all like a touchy feely conversation, and it might be. And at the same time, sometimes it's just like being vulnerable enough to say, I don't know how to do this.
mm-hmm.
I need some training here. Right. How would you go about this? How am I supposed to do that?
That's right.
you know?
Well, and I would say empathy doesn't always have to just be rolling over and being like, "Oh, that's terrible. We're all victims," right? Because
Yeah.
I don't play any of that either. So sometimes empathy is, "I hear you, and that does suck, and I'm really sorry to hear that. I wish that didn't happen." But then, what are we coaching after that? And that's what I keep stressing to our team is like, we need to coach grit. We need to coach strength. We don't need to coach that tomorrow's
Mhm.
going to get easier. We need to coach that tomorrow we're all going to be stronger. And so
Yeah.
but I don't want it to just be grit in a vacuum either, because to sit
Right.
here and blow past really real, really traumatic, really hurtful scenarios and just be like, well, just get over it. Just be tougher. Like that's
Right.
unacceptable too, right? So I think there's
Yeah.
balance there, right? It can't be all empathy. It can't be all grit.
Yep. 100%, man. 100%. You described my life as raising teenagers. Like we have several of them around here right now. And it's like you want to save them, right? You want to feel bad. And I think we've talked about this on the show before. I think, if not, I talk about it with others, but often we just want to, we see the trap that maybe somebody's walking into and we're like, oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, I don't want, cause you're like, this is going to hurt. But it's like, sometimes that hurt is actually what develops.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you kind of got to let them go try the thing, let them screw it up a little bit, and now, and it's like my daughter did a great job, man, saved up her money, paid cash for her first car. Right. She got it for about a month, hits a raccoon. Yeah, no big deal, but it does break the bumper and it's got, some other things. And then going through the process of trying to get that fixed, we find some other things that need to be fixed. Now it's like, well, here's the harsh reality. You own a car and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to cost things. And, so I'm empathetic. I've been there. I own a car too, and I have expenses. So I can very well empathize with that. And I'm not doing it for you, at least not all of it. I will walk through it with you,
That's
right?
right.
I'm going to walk by your side, walk you through this. We're going to learn how to do it, but it's going to take a minute.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
and I think that's critical. You want to help them, but you can't rob them of that adversity because we probably all went through it ourselves, and that's what made us who we are. So
yep, absolutely. Cam, this has been a cool conversation. I'm excited to see where you guys are going. Stratovation Group is hitting the stratosphere. You guys should check them out. Where do we go find you online?
stratovationgroup.com. And if not, we're usually at a bunch of conferences and events. So we'd love to see you in the market one way or another.
Sounds good, man. I hope to see you at the next one.
Likewise. Thanks again, Mark. This has been great.
Mm-hmm.